Hey bookworms and constant readers, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about a book that has been on my to be read list for quite some time. It is a fellow booktuber, my absolute favorite booktuber, Brian Lee Durfee, and The Forgetting Moon, the Five Warrior Angels, Book 1. If you haven't checked out Brian Lee Durfee's channel, I highly recommend it. A lot of what I do on this channel is based on what he does on his channel. I don't do a lot of editing with my videos. I don't have no like grand opening to my videos or anything like that. I do book reviews. I try to encourage people to read more books. And I don't do what other booktubers are doing. I read books that I like. With that being said, like all books on this channel, we are going to start with the cover. Again, it is The Forgetting Moon, the Five Warrior Angels, Book 1. This is published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press by Brian Lee Durfee. If you watch his channel, you kind of get that little opening. So this has a cool wraparound cover. And the artist, I didn't see where the artist was credited. It's got to be in here somewhere. I just missed it because Mr. Durfee is an artist himself. He does paintings, all kinds of stuff, and I just can't imagine that he would not credit the artist. I like the cover. It's got this cool like knight on horseback, ridiculously long sword. Looks like there's maybe a castle or something burning in the background. It's very cool. What I like most about this cover, that if I didn't know what the book was and I saw it in a bookstore, what would catch my eye is the font that he used. I love the font with the gold lettering. He used it for his name down here. Very cool cover. That's what would catch my eye. And I would probably pick the book up just because of that. As far as eye-catching cover, not so much. But the font, really cool. I give this cover 4 out of 5. One thing I have been skipping on, and a couple of you have reminded me, friends and family have reminded me, I keep forgetting to read the synopsis on the back. So, here it goes. Welcome to the Five Isles, where war has come in the name of the invading army of Sorcevier. I think that's how you say it. The merciless host, driven by the prophetic fervor of the angel prince Eros towards the last unconquered kingdom of Golconda. That is a very, very brief description of what this is about. If I read that, I don't know that I would pick the book up because of that. Which leads me into another issue with family and friends. And a couple of you subscribers have reached out to me on different platforms. You found me and have asked what it is I have against fantasy, why I don't like fantasy. And I've never said I don't like fantasy. My problem with fantasy is with any other book that is this thick. So I have a threshold on books, and it's 500 or less. I think if you can't tell your story in 500 or less pages, then maybe you need to split it up. And with fantasy, it's like this a lot. That's why I pick on fantasy. You don't really get it with horror, although the book I'm reading right now is longer than this one. And so that's the main thing, is the length, because I like to read really good stories like this, but I also like to read a ton of books. And in the time it takes me to read this one book, I probably could have read 2 or 3 other books. So I'm looking at like a quantity over quality. Would those other 3 books be as good as this book as a combined whole? Maybe. Or I might have read like 3 fantastic books instead of 1 fantastic book. So that's my big issue. The other is how it seems like every fantasy story I get into, there are multiple books. And I'm not talking like a trilogy. I don't mind a trilogy, which is what this is. This is a 3-book trilogy. There's plenty of like horror novels out there that are trilogies, or thrillers that are trilogies. Like what comes to mind for me is like Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes, or Stieg, I think it's Larson, and the Millennial trilogy, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So they're trilogies, they don't bother me. But usually with fantasies, it's like 5, 6, 10, 12 plus books, and they're all like 800 pages or more. And in this instance, ones that come to mind are the Malazan books, which I haven't read yet. The Wheel of Time books, I've read the first one. The Game of Thrones books, Song of Ice and Fire. I've read A Game of Thrones, which is the first book. I haven't read any of the others. But they're all these big, epic stories. And there's multiple volumes. So that's the problem I have with fantasy. But it's not that I don't like fantasy, because I do. Because they have really good stories like this one. So, what is this book about? So this book is about a lot, and I want to talk about so much, but I don't want to ruin anything. So it's hard to talk about this book without ruining like some of the really good parts. So I'm going to try and tell you what it's about, but be extremely vague. So this is like really like heavy in religion. There's 2 warring religions and basically a secret society that form like the main plot of this story. So you have this one religion who on this island of Golkana, everybody worships, I think it's pronounced Lejeune, and they have this holy book, the Way, I think it's called the Way of Lejeune, and it's like their god. And everybody like worships this god. Well, this invading army that the synopsis talked about is led by this prince named Eros, and he believes that he is their god reborn, and I want to say it's Rigel, I think is how you say it. And he has basically taken his armies and he swept all of the kingdoms, and now everything is under their rule. And usually everybody in their wake is killed. The ones that are, I guess you would say, lucky to survive, they get branded as slaves, and they either convert to this new religion or they die. They die a slave. And even though you're branded a slave, you can show your devotion to this new religion, and you can actually like earn your way out of slavery. But yeah, this army is brutal, and Mr. Durfee's writing, it is so good. Like, everything is written with purpose. This book, from the first page to the last page, he just slams on the gas and does not let up. There is nothing boring in this book. From cover to cover, it is non-stop, like balls to the wall, let's go storytelling. There's no overly like descriptive page after page of reading about somebody's wardrobe or what they're eating. The stuff in other fantasy novels that like bores me to tears is not in this book. This book is like epic fantasy mixed with like in your face like rock and roll. He will put you in the story as well as any other writer on the planet. His descriptive writing and storytelling is just as good as Stephen King, Brandon Sanderson, you name the author. Like, why people aren't talking more about this book, why this dude is not like a fantasy superstar, I don't understand. Because this is one of the best fantasy books that I have ever read, period. I put it up there with Lord of the Rings. I put it up there with anything against Brandon Sanderson that he's written. Before reading this book, I thought Way of the Kings was amazing. This is just as good, if not better, than that book. And not only do you have this war going on in this story, but you also have this secret society, and they believe like they know the truth about everything. And that's where the 5 warrior angels comes in. So they believe in this prophecy that there's going to be these 5 warrior angels reborn. They're going to come together and they're going to end this war and bring peace to the land. And you learn about who they think are these 5 warrior angels. One is a slave, one is a gladiator, one is a princess, and so on. This book is so good. I cannot put into words like how good it is. I did not want to stop reading. You want to know like what is going to happen next. It's a super fast read, and you're skipping around to these different main characters, but you never leave a character for too long where you have to read a little bit to remember like, okay, what was going on over here. Like each chapter moves you around all these different places, these different people. And I highly doubt it, but Mr. Durfee, if you're watching this, we need a book on the Mer people. I'm just going to put that out there. The best part of the book happens early on in the book, at least the best part for me. They're on this it's kind of like a whaling vessel, the way it's described, but they're not hunting whales. They're hunting this type of fish. And these mer people are in the book. Kids, women, mermen, and they are terrifying. I want to learn more about these people. They're only mentioned in this one scene, and then later you see one on a rock that dives into the water just briefly. That's the only time they're mentioned, and oh my God. Like I want a book on just these people. I want to know their history. I want to know what they've been through, because these aren't like your ordinary like mermaids you've heard before. Like these people are vicious and they are mean. You got to write a book, Mr. Durfee, on the mer people, the mer folk of the Forgetting Moon. You have to. Yeah, I cannot recommend this book enough. Like, it is total 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Whatever, rating system is good for you, it's at the top. Highly recommend you read this book. I cannot wait to read book 2. Book 2 is The Blackest Heart. I will be reading that after the book I'm currently reading. And then I believe in November, the third book of the trilogy comes out. This was originally supposed to be a 5-book series, from what people have told me. And it was shortened to a 3-book series. But yeah, if the second one is anywhere near as good as this one, I'm going to just enjoy the shit out of it. Because this book, totally badass, amazing storytelling. Like, there are characters in here you'll love, there are characters in here that you'll hate. It is so good. There's all kinds of schemes and plots and stuff going on behind people's backs. Like, it has everything you could ever want in a fantasy story and more. Do yourself a favor, pick up Brian Lee Durfee's The Forgetting Moon, The 5 Warrior Angels, Book 1. You won't regret it. This is, so far, my favorite book I've read of the year. That's all I got for you for this review. I mean, it was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. There's so much I want to tell you about this book, but I don't want to spoil it. Just go check it out. One more thing, he does some really cool, the geographer in me just loved this part of the book. Does some really cool maps of where everything is taking place. Most of what's going on takes place right here. And as far as map goes, it's actually really good. If I was grading this, usually you're like a freshman or a sophomore when you take cartography if you're majoring in geography. And whoever made the map, they did a really good job. It has a scale bar, it has a title, it has your compass rose. Yeah, I totally enjoyed it. It's got a border, it's all labeled. Like, whoever they got to make their maps, awesome job. And then, like most fantasy books, also in the back you have this appendix that gives you information on all the characters and stuff you encounter. I didn't really need it with this book because, like I said, you're never away from one person long enough to where you're like, what is going on with them? It's really good. Highly recommend this book. It is total epic fantasy. It's epic fantasy on steroids. So one more thing before I go. The next book that I am reading, I've already started it. I'm about 200 pages in. It is thicker than the last one. The paperback comes in at like 1,100 pages, I think. Let me see here. Almost 1,100 pages. Stephen King's Under the Dome. There you have it. Next on the list. See, only about 200 pages into it. It's hard to believe. That's 200 pages. Look how much I got left. That's all I have for you in this video. Go check out Brian Lee Durfee's channel. Check out his books. Till next time, read more books.